The Dordogne is a river in France. It's also the central setting to this game that we're playing, and it also happens to be the only time you're gonna catch me saying that word because it certainly wasn't right. I don't speak French, I mean, come on. This is a super cool game with a very unique art style. We are going to be playing as Mimi, our main character, who has a little bit of a memory problem in that she doesn't have any before her 13th birthday. Everything that happened before that is kind of a blur to her, so surely we're going to start looking into that a little bit. The game starts with Mimi waking up, sleeping in the back of her car, and it seems like she is in for a big trip. This game also has some pretty unique controls to it, so it takes a little bit of getting used to be able to do basically anything in here. We find our phone and read through some recent text to learn that we're kind of in an argument with our father about this trip that we're taking. It turns out that Mimi recently received 2 letters, the first of which being a letter that was actually addressed to her father, but she discovered. Her grandmother Nora had recently passed away, and the family house was being emptied based on her father's request, but she decided that she wanted to check it out one more time. We get a pretty cool cinematic scene of Mimi pulling out of the rest station where she was stopped and driving her car towards the house where we're going to be spending the rest of the game. It turns out that our father cut ties with his mother, the grandmother that we're going to visit the house of right now, about 20 years ago. That's why we haven't been back to this house since we were a child. But we learn in this letter that our grandmother has actually put aside a box of things that she wants us to come retrieve if possible. And one quick driving transition scene later, we have arrived at the house in question. I came into this game blind, no idea what the gameplay was going to be like, but man, the art in this was really capturing me right off the bat. Of course, the house has a locked gate out front, so step 1 is to retrieve the key that is conveniently hidden right in view. That gets us into the garden area surrounding the house, and I've gotta say, things are definitely looking a little worse for wear here. Luckily, they leave the doors unlocked in France, so it's no big deal to get actually inside of the house. One downside though is that this house is a little bit out of commission, so there's no lighting in here. We're gonna need to light a candle to find our way around. While we're lighting the candle though, we happen to notice a pin sitting on the table next to it, and inside of that pin is a note. Finding this note earns us the achievement The First Memory, and we find a note from our grandmother stating that she knew we would find this right away. That's a little weird. I'm not gonna lie, at this point I was kind of thinking that the twist on this game was gonna be that our grandmother wasn't actually dead and this was just a ploy to get us back here. But anyway, for right now, we enter into a Jimmy Neutron brain blast back into the past, where we get into the body of our former self the last time that we visited Nora's house. The childhood scenes of this game are where the majority of the gameplay is actually going to take place, and it is 20 years before our adult character is exploring the house. In the summer of 1982, Mimi spent 4 weeks at her grandmother's home. She wasn't super pleased about it, but this is actually the last time she would ever see her grandmother. In addition to being where the majority of the gameplay is going to take place, the childhood Mimi also has the ability to see collectibles in the world. These collectibles come in the form of stickers and words, both of which we're going to need to collect all of for some achievement-based purposes. We also get to see what the house was like back in childhood form, and gotta say, things are definitely a lot better put together than we saw it as an adult. Step 1 of going to Grandma's house is to pack all of our things away in the room we're going to be staying in, which for some reason includes putting the toothbrush in the bottom drawer. Yuck. We try to head outside, but Nora tells us to go in the living room and find something to draw with. We go to the living room and grab the oldest looking book we can find to start our sketches. We play a weird little drawing mini-game type thing where we draw a picture of our parents, and because we drew them holding hands, we earn the achievement Loving Family. But when Nora comes into the room, she isn't super pleased that this is the journal we chose to draw in. We learn that our grandfather has just passed away about a year before this event is happening, and this is a binder that they used to use to pass notes back and forth to each other. We receive the achievement The Binder for getting the binder as we warp back to the present. Speaking of the present, apparently we've just been standing here staring at the candle we just lit for, I don't know, 15 minutes or whatever, so now it's time for us to actually go around and open up all of the windows so we can get some light in here. We do a pretty big exploration of the house before we eventually arrive at the room that we were staying at as a child, so maybe that's where the box will be hidden. Inside the drawer, we find a letter that our mother wrote to Nora stating that she was sorry for some big argument that happened between her and our father a year before that visit in the summer. But the main event of taking a look in this drawer is really this little camera that we click and flashbang ourselves so hard with that we warp back into the past once again. The next day as a child, we are going breakfast mode. The food is a little bit unusual here, definitely not what we're used to, and unfortunately I picked the juice over the milk, missing out on a potential achievement that we'll have to go back for later. Nora does tell us to go a little light on the cereal though, and I'm very pleased to tell you that the game definitely doesn't make you go super light on the cereal. You can definitely use up an entire box, which is pretty good. Nora decides that we should get out of the house for a little bit. Now, this is definitely a time before, like, the Game Boy or whatever, but, you know, it's still important to get outside, so she takes us to the local river, the titular one that I said I would never say again. Luckily, Nora's a pretty quick thinker. She actually brought a screen for her granddaughter to play with, the camera that we had in the future. That gives us the achievement, the camera, for unlocking the camera. Shocker. Gotta say though, I kinda get why Dad stopped talking to Nora. She is not visible on this camera at all. I don't know if that means she's a ghost or what. Vampire maybe? I don't know, somebody I feel like should do something about this. I get why it's not, but the photography is actually only available in certain select areas, so it's not as cool as it might be, but I get why they didn't want to do like full landscapes in this art style. Anyway, each chapter ends with us creating a new page for our binder, so we'll go ahead and do that. It's not super important. Back in adulthood, Mimi happens to look out the window and see a cat walking around with a key conveniently placed on its collar, so I guess we'll go try to figure out what all of that's about. This cat, by the way, is present in the cutscenes in the past, so this guy's at least 20 years old. Nora was a certified cat lady, so naturally she had some treats stashed in the house that we used to coax the cat over, and we retrieve the key into the shed. So that's just what we'll do. Let's go into the giant crumbling building that is surely going to be perfectly safe for us. Inside the shed, we find a letter out in the open that seems to be written by our grandfather to another parent, perhaps, or a school board member, something like that. It seems like he gave this watch away to one of the children, and there was some sort of drama surrounding it. We'll get more into this in a little bit. The main item in the shed is this kayak that, upon seeing a couple of handprints on it, we decide to warp back into the past once again. At the very start of this chapter, we see Nora coming out of some sort of secret room that we actually haven't been able to access in either world up to this point, but we do notice where she stashes the key. We do kind of an impressively quick job of getting ready for the day, and we have a small epiphany in the bathroom about what the relationship between Nora and our father was like. Seems not great, and maybe that's what's causing our memory issues. We head outside, and it seems like Nora's plan for the day is to get some gardening done. So, we head into the shed to grab a trowel, and we also get our first look at the kayak as well. That sees us begin another weird little mini game where we need to pull weeds and dig a hole and plant one of 3 plants in the ground and then water it. You know, normal gardening stuff, but it just seems kind of unusual that we're doing it. I kind of agree with a lot of the comments that I've been seeing online about this game. The actual gameplay portions just feel kind of unnecessary. I mean, it definitely gives some weight to the game, but it just feels a little bit out of place and clunky sometimes. We do such a good job with our gardening that Nora decides, hey, maybe we can fix up the broken kayak together as well. So we wander off together past the river towards the market, where we eventually earn the achievement, the market, for arriving at the market. Nora gives us a big list of supplies that we need to go pick up, in addition to some regular groceries. And I've gotta say, the perspective of the camera changes, and they did a really good job making this market feel super claustrophobic. So we venture around the market talking to lots of different vendors and grabbing the things off the list one by one. That is, until we hit a little bit of a snag. We were looking for some waterproof glue, some wood, and some milk, all of which has been stolen by some kid running around the market area. Nora has the idea that maybe we should try to find this thief, grab a picture of him, and maybe, I don't know, we can send it to the proper authorities or something. And luckily, just when she has this idea, the thief goes running by and we manage to snag a picture to earn the achievement Gotcha. We get the weird feeling that maybe Nora actually knew who the thief was gonna be even before we got the picture taken, but hey, at least we managed to recover the bag of items. The thief dropped it for some reason when the flash went off. We take a super casual photo with all of the people in the market that we helped, and we reminisce on just how weird it is that we forgot all of this stuff that we experienced. Back in the regular world, we brew a little bit of tea, and we actually earn the achievement Sniper for filling a mug without wasting any water. That definitely didn't happen. I definitely missed a little bit at the start, but I'll take it. Luckily for us, that key that we noticed back in the past is actually still sitting in the exact same place above the door, so now we can go ahead and use that to unlock it. Inside, we find something that I definitely wasn't expecting, an absolutely giant miniature train set. And for some reason, our grandparents decided that the best way to lock down the controls of this train set was to record some tapes and put codes on them that you could then put in order and get the code. Once we seize control of the train though, it pulls itself out of the tunnel that it was hiding in, and riding on top of the train, we find a tape recorder, which gives us the achievement The Recorder. It turns out that actually one time Nora got distracted and left the door to the room wide open, which gave Mimi the perfect opportunity to sneak inside. It's kinda weird to learn that you've actually discovered this same secret hidden train room twice in one lifetime. The recorder once again emerges out on top of the train, and that gives us the other option that we have when we're doing one of the photography checkpoint areas. We actually have the opportunity to record sounds as well. Speaking of, we take this opportunity to take some cool pictures of the train in motion as we earn the achievement Cheese for taking 10 total pictures. Nora actually manages to creep up the stairs silently behind us and gives us a little bit of a surprise, but she's actually not mad that we managed to find our way inside of here. Turns out that this was something that she used to do with our grandfather once again, and it's nice to share it with us, I guess. But really, who cares about all of that bonding stuff? We've got a boat to fix. With our expert craftsmanship, we managed to get the boat all ready to go, painted up, a special 2 handprint mark loaded onto it, and it magically appears down by the river. We earn the achievement Kayaking for getting in the kayak, because what better way to test out the craftsmanship of a 12-year-old than to go ahead and hop directly into this boat in an active river. Didn't even really give time for like the glue to settle or anything, we're just right out in the water. We paddle on down the river to a nearby beach that Nora knows quite well, as the whole family used to go down here years ago. It's pretty nice, it's a very relaxing scene, and we get a nice picnic lunch as well. That is until the wind picks up and blows a lot of our supplies away out into the water, so I guess we're gonna have to go retrieve those now. We hit a pretty sick dive down into the water, and we play another minigame that really didn't need to exist, honestly. But when we emerge out of the water and we're about to hop in the boat to head home, we notice a somewhat familiar face peering at us from the woods, so naturally Mimi wants to go investigate. So now we get to do some pretty easy parkour up the side of this miniature mountain, and nothing really of note happens during this trip up the hill. We get a very beautiful look down into the river valley when suddenly we get interrupted by the familiar face of the thief in the market, though now we can actually confirm it. Somehow. I mean, his face wasn't visible in the photo we took for sure, but I guess Mimi is smart enough to recognize it. It turns out that this kid is seeking a dragon called the Coulobre, who is apparently living underneath the water in that river that I also won't say the name of ever again. But turns out that he could use a little bit of help, but first we need to prove that we're capable of helping him out, so he throws us a puzzle that we're going to need to solve. So of course we've got to race back home to figure out that puzzle. Sadly though, it's actually not that much of a puzzle. We're actually just matching up some squares to the corresponding size square on a map, and then we solve some pretty easy riddles to draw 2 lines on the map which give us an X of the location that he wants us to meet him. It is convenient that he already had this prepped for us though. Back in the train room, we find a letter that was addressed to our grandfather from the school board talking about his relationship with a student named Renaud. That's pretty interesting because that's also the name of the boy that we just met in that last chapter. Back in child form, we're planning on sneaking out of the house to go meet with the boy, and actually, lucky for us, Nora appears to have fallen asleep, so it's not going to be too much of a challenge. Though that being said, if you leave the house and come back in, she is nowhere to be found in the room where she was supposedly asleep. So we walk down to the river and hop in the kayak. You know, we just did it for the first time yesterday, we're probably at the level where we can go ahead and go do it by ourselves. We arrive at the mouth of the cave that the boy asked to meet us at, but it seems like it's going to be super dark inside. So naturally we do this weird Shrekian type move where we trap a couple lightning bugs in a jar to light our path through this actual cave. Oops, my bad. We actually learned the boy's name at this point, so I guess I gave a little bit of a spoiler there, but yeah, anyway, we're in the cave now, and this is the right place, so we need to start exploring the cave to make our way up to him. We have some small conversation as we make our way through the cave, and despite our photograph that seems to prove otherwise, he is very insistent that he is not a thief. We arrive at the top of the cave and see that he's actually set up a pretty cool effect that lights the cave up in the shape of that dragon that he's pursuing. I guess that's all those stolen art supplies that did that. We earn the achievement Renaud as we approach the top of the cave. Turns out that he's actually got a pretty cool base going on here with all of the items that he's collected over the years. The stuff that he's gathered also includes a book about this sea dragon that he's looking to find that will definitely be helpful seeing as we're going to start hunting for it almost immediately. We also get another very cool camera shot view from the top of his base where we earn the achievement Just Listen for recording 2 total sounds. The boy also shows off his super cool watch that he has. Apparently he got this as a gift from one of his teachers, but it's a secret from everybody else. We didn't notice him wearing it before, so it must be something that he keeps hidden up here. And you know that bad boy is pricey because he can store up to 10 phone numbers in it. That's right. We head home for the night with the plan to return tomorrow to begin our hunt for the dragon. We return back to Grandma's house, and she actually isn't super mad about the fact that we've been gone all day without leaving her any information about where we went. She actually gives us a scarf and just asks us a couple pretty easy questions about what we were out doing. As an adult, we venture into Nora's bedroom for the first time, where we find another letter to our grandfather. This time it came from the boy's parents, who seemed to be threatening him for some sort of investigation that he was doing. We open up Nora's former closet, and we pull out that very scarf that we were wearing at the end of the last chapter. But things are actually a little different. We notice a photograph drop out of the scarf that is quite interesting. We see our grandparents hanging out alongside the boy and his parents, and the watch is present on our grandfather's wrist. We sneak off to hang out with the boy once again, but this time Nora actually sneaks out behind us and follows us to the beach. She seems to not really have a problem with what we're doing though, as she smiles and walks away. At lunchtime, Mimi says that she needs to return home to go grab lunch with her grandmother, but the boy drops a pretty sad line on us. He's just gonna go ahead and stay in the woods because nobody really cares about what he's doing anyway, so maybe they'll continue tomorrow. Mimi bursts into Nora's room where she's sleeping and wakes her up with the great idea to invite the boy over for lunch. Pretty great scene where Nora is reasonably pretty shocked about what's going on, but she does come around and agrees to have a picnic for the 2 kids. We get another small mini-game transition scene, this time where we're cooking food. Kinda going Venba mode on this one, honestly. So we hop in the kayak with our picnic basket full of food and head down to the beach where we can meet the boy for lunch. We arrive on the beach, and for the first time, our grandmother and the thief from the market come face to face. But first, before we get into any real conversation, we gotta hit the goofiest photo of all time. We make some pretty awkward conversation, like, I don't know, this is just scripted so well to be like a super weird conversation between these 2 characters that clearly know each other but are pretending to not. That is, until Mimi asks directly, "Do you two know each other?" when Nora responds, "It's all about that watch." No bass or even a little bit of treble. Nora informs us that the boy is a thief and a liar. Apparently he stole the watch, but nobody seems to believe that he didn't. In his anger, he throws the watch on the ground, breaking it, and our grandmother informs us that we shouldn't play with thieves. Which seems a little bit weird because she didn't try to stop us before, when she definitely knew who it was. To calm down, we do a little bit of journaling as we earn the achievement "It's Just Getting Started" for creating 5 pages in the binder. We awake from our trance once again in our adult body as we hear an alarm going off downstairs that we're definitely going to need to go investigate. As we're leaving the room, we notice another note has appeared on the bed. Is anybody else getting creeped out by all these notes that keep appearing around the house? Anyway, this is the conclusion to the school board saga, where we find that our grandfather apparently raised concerns about the boy being injured by his parents and related it to their religious beliefs, but the academy couldn't really pursue it. Mimi heads downstairs and finds that the beeping that we heard upstairs was actually the very watch that we were discussing all along. I'm not really sure why it decided to go off right at this moment for any reason other than plot-related purposes. Mimi also happens to take a closer look at the newspapers that the watch was buried under as she learns that the river actually flooded in August of 1982, which happens to be right when she was here last. That takes us back to kid mode, where we learn that Mimi has taken the watch that Renau smashed on the ground and restored it, other than the battery that appears to be missing, so she's going to need to head to the market to get a new one. Nora is once again asleep in this scene, so we head into her room and leave her a tape explaining that we're going to go to the market. This is where we earn the achievement "The Archivist" for collecting all of the tapes in the game, which is pretty cool. And immediately after that, we earn the achievement "Like a Swiss Clock" for using the toilet in the house every single day of the game as a child. This is the rarest achievement in the game because you actually can't get it from chapter select. You have to do it in one full playthrough, so I just happened to do it basically on accident. I was really trying my best not to miss collectibles, though I ended up failing on that. I pretty much ran around and explored everything in every area on every single day, so we lucked out in that regard. I even went back and checked this set of books in the bathroom every single day, even though it only gave me something once. So we set off on the familiar path towards the market, except this time things are a little bit different because a storm has definitely come in and things are a lot darker, rainier, and muddier. The path that we used to take to the market is actually closed down due to the storm, so we decide to go the longer way out on the river with the kayak. The relaxing kayak game from earlier is no more, however, as we are actually fighting for our life out here. And that becomes all too literal when we crash our kayak in the river's rapids and we plunge down below the surface. We awake on an underwater path where we take some very floaty steps forward. This eventually leads us to meeting the sea dragon face to face as we earn the achievement "The Colobre." Turns out he's a pretty chill dude though. I mean, he did sink our kayak, but he's a helpful guy after all, as he decides to give us a little bit of a boost up towards a very bright white light. We then cut back to the surface where we find Nora and the boy have both gone out in the rain and are searching for Mimi on the shore. The boy manages to spot her tangled up in some branches on the water, and he makes the heroic dive into the water, and we are suddenly playing as him now. Gotta say, I probably wouldn't have recommended this child to also jump into the rapids, but he's actually kinda handling it better than the kayak did. The boy arrives at Mimi's floating body and pulls some branches off of her before pulling her directly back onto the beach where we were before. He doesn't really have the skills to help out from this point, but luckily Nora wasn't too far off either, and now we take control of her for a little CPR minigame. They definitely made this game not too hard though, as we earn the achievement First Aid for completing the CPR with no errors. We then cut back to a much sunnier scene on the river with an adult Nora looking around when she suddenly notices someone moving around in the trees once again. We come face to face with the boy who has now become the man who actually ended up living with Nora towards the end. Seems like after our accident, Nora kind of took him in. And towards the end, she also gave him this box to pass over to us, so I guess maybe he was the one sneaking around the house putting notes down all over the place for us to find. We also learned that after Nora revived us on the beach, our father was not super pleased and took us far away, which is why we never saw Nora again. And honestly, I kinda get it. I mean, not really, but like, she did almost let her drown. Not intentionally, obviously, but it was already a rocky relationship, so I get where the father's coming from. The man passes over the box Nora prepared for us, where we find a couple of relics of our past, as well as the binder that we were using to collect all of our memory pages. We also find that Nora stashed away one final letter for us to find, as we earn the achievement The End or the Beginning for collecting the last letter, and Postman for collecting all of the letters in the game. Reading Nora's letter, we see that she's reflecting on all of the summers that she missed out on of us coming back after our father took us away from her. And after the passing of her husband, that became an extremely lonely time. But from that tragedy, something was reborn. She had a not great relationship with the boy in the woods, but after he rescued her granddaughter, she began to see that maybe things weren't quite as they seemed, so she took him in and raised him as her own. We also get a pretty cool montage of Mimi and the man, and also the cat that they've apparently been taking care of, hanging out together. Until eventually we see a moving van pull up, and Mimi standing at the front gate of the house. She places her own name tag on the mailbox that we opened up to enter into the property in the first place, and we learn that she has definitely convinced her father not to get rid of the house as she is moving back in. This was such a beautiful game, and now we're at the end of it, at least as far as the credits rolling. We still have quite a few achievements we need to go back and pick up, so let's go ahead and do that now. A lot of the remaining achievements are pretty easy, starting with black is a happy color for entering the kitchen and the living room before we actually light the candle up. Next up is rule number 1, milk first. I oh so nearly got this. I needed to fill the bowl without wasting milk, but instead I chose to have the juice. The next achievement, psst, 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 is for chasing the cat around the pond 5 times before you go into the scene where you feed it the treats. I only interacted with it once the first time around, so I definitely missed out on this one. The next achievement that I earned is kind of weird. It's called Pimp Your Laptop for collecting all of the stickers in the game, and for some reason that unlocked when I was replaying the section where I got the trowel sticker. This was not one that I missed the first time around, and I was actually still missing a couple, so unsure why it unlocked here, but I'll take it, I guess. Next up is City for taking a total of 20 pictures, no big deal. The next achievement is equally easy. It's called Did You Hear That for recording a total of 8 sounds. And speaking of recording sounds, the next achievement is called Jean-Claude Roche, but I accidentally missed out on getting this one captured on camera. I paused my recording when I stepped away for a minute, and I failed to turn it back on. This one's just for recording 14 sounds though, so you really didn't miss that much. In one of the scenes where we're hanging out with the boy, there is a little Simon Says game that you need to play, and to earn the achievement Outstanding Imitator, you need to complete it with no errors. This is super easy, but I actually messed it up the first time around because I just wasn't paying close enough attention, and I didn't notice what we were doing. This is where we would have been inserting the finishing up the stickers achievement if it didn't randomly pop, but also here we finish up the collectibles of the words to earn the achievement Dictionary is not an option. And we're in pure cleanup mode here as we earn the achievement Sarah Moon for taking 50 pictures. I was basically just spamming it at this point. And finally, the 2 remaining achievements are Holiday Homework for creating 10 pages in the binder and Marcel Proust for creating 20 pages in the binder. These are basically nothing at all, we're just randomly spam clicking through to get the pages put together, but then I can officially say that I have done everything in Dordogne. But how did we do? I managed to complete this game in exactly 5.5 hours. And weirdly enough, it was actually all in one session, though like I mentioned before, I did pause it and get up a couple times, but I actually played through this whole thing one session, so it is a pretty short and easy game to get through. Obviously, the art style is the main gripping thing about this game. Just visually, you look at it and it's very striking. It doesn't look like a lot of other games that are out, and I've got to say it works super well. The game was also super clean overall, the story made a lot of sense, and I didn't run into really any bugs at all. I would say my main complaint is just the actual interactive elements just felt a little bit out of place, but I do understand why they were there to give the game a little bit more bulk to it. I would definitely recommend checking this game out though if this is the type of thing that you're into. It gave me huge What Remains of Edith Finch vibes. I tried to find a place in the actual video to slot that in, but I just moved through the early part of the game too quickly. Really, when I was approaching the house and first walking around with the candlelight, it felt so Edith Finch, it was crazy. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video as well. As always, please feel free to leave a comment down below to let me know your thoughts on the game or if I messed up any of the story elements, as that is always possible. Please feel free to leave any other games that you'd like to see me check out down there as well. Hope everybody has a great day, and I hope to see you for the next one. See you!